Hey everybody, I am Beth Golden. I am so happy that you're joining me. I have a video today that I'm going to share with you in which I go over 3 different tips and techniques that you can use on your cards for a surefire success. And these may be common to some, but to me, it took me a little bit to figure them out. I haven't found them really anywhere on YouTube, so I thought I would share them. And they include embossing, how to get that perfect die cut stamped image when you have the little die cuts that come with the stamps, because you know how sometimes you can die cut it and then you try to stamp it and it's not lined up, or you stamp it and then when it runs through your die cut machine it ends up cutting some of your image off or leaving you too much of a border. Yeah, we're going to address that today. And then also, if you ever gotten a stamp set and there's like a ton of really cute little stamps, we're going to talk about how you can work with that and how you can make some pretty amazing cards. And then at the end, I'm going to make a bonus card with you using this stamp set that I think is super cute. And I'm just going to use my Distress Embossing Glazes that are just out by Tim Holtz. They came out for Creativation 2020 and they're super cool. A lot of people are having a hard time understanding what the difference between them and a regular embossing powder is. So we're gonna go over that and I'm gonna show you a really fun resist technique that you can use with that. So that's a little bonus. So I'm so glad that you joined me. Can't wait to share with you today. And let's get busy and do some creating. First up is, look at this cute little buddy stamp set. They're about 1 inch. And sometimes I look at these and I go, oh my gosh, they're so small. And it's going to look like my card is eating up these little images. And I don't know what to do because they can look quite boring if they're just on their own. So what I have is I have a die cut that's like this. And you can get these pretty much anywhere. Everything for this is close to my heart. I have the link provided down below in the box. I've seen them in squares and I've seen them in circles. So I'm going to show you real quick how you can create a card with this stamp set. So what you're going to do is, it's best to take out your MISTI, and I already have my stamps lined up. But I like to use the little corner pieces on the MISTI on this for some reason. It just tends to hold better. And I just slip it in to these corner pieces like so, and then I line up, I take my piece over, and so I cut down a piece of cardstock to your traditional card front, which is an A2, so 4.2 5 by 5.5. My die cut cuts out to 4 by 5.25. So I need to line up my images on top of my die cut. So I lay everything out. And then once I have them all laid out, I go ahead and I pick them up with my MISTI, like so. And then I'm just going to remove this piece, set it aside for now, and then I'm going to just hold that in place. Depending on what you decide to color your images in with will depend on what kind of ink you use. I'm going to be using a mix of some shimmer pens by Close to My Heart, and then also Tim Holtz Distress markers. So I need to use archival black ink by Black Suit by Ranger. I think that this is just really universally good. You don't want to use it with Copics, but for anything that's a water medium, water soluble, this is definitely your best ink for that. Okay, so I'm just going to take this over and then press on through, and I'm a rubber, so I rub. And the beauty of this is if it doesn't get a good, if it doesn't transfer well or stamp well, you can do it again. See, not perfect, right? So I'm going to go ahead, do it again. And I usually do on this particular, I am having to do it a couple times, I noticed. So make sure it's all lined up, nothing moved around there. And then again, I'm just going to go in with my ink one more time and stamp it through. Rub it on down, stamp it on through, Voila. Now for this, I'm going to show you a little bit of a hint because some people are a little bit mystified by the Tim Holtz ink Distress, and they're so much fun because you can use water with them, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to let's start off with this pig. I'm going to take some worn lipstick, and I'm just going to color this on through. Like so. You could do the snout a different color, whatever. As you can tell, I'm not a colorist, so everything you're going to see today does not use Copic markers. I'm going to use a couple different things, give you a couple different options. Okay, so once you get that done, you can actually take an Aquaflow brush or basically a brush that has some water on the tip, and just smooth out that color by applying some water, and it just gives a really pretty watercolor effect. It looks like the little images are watercolored in. Your ink doesn't run because it's archival, it's waterproof. And then let's say down here I want to make my little unicorn look magical. So I'm going to take a pink shimmer marker, which is another water. Look, the tip on it's a brush tip, right? And I'm just going to color this in like so. I did the pink on that. And then let me do on the little ears. Let's do some, well, on the unicorn, the horn itself. Let me do a little bit of purple. And then let me do some light blue. I think this is like a mint. And now my unicorn looks like super magical. And, you know, realistically speaking, you could run some clear shimmer type over the panda as well as the penguin, but I don't know if you can see that shine. Isn't that cool? Okay, so let's say that you're like, well, I don't want it to be a white background, okay? I don't want it to be white. I want it to look like there's an edge. Well, this is super simple. All you have to do is just take some dye ink. I'm just using Simon Hurley right now. And just around the edge, just lightly go around the edge with your dyed ink. And dye ink pads are buildable colors. So what that means is if it's not dark enough, or if you have like blending brush or tool strokes in it, like you can see the lines, you can just continue just to go around and add more color, and then you will eventually end up with a beautiful edge that will be covered by your frame that you created. Then from here, you're just going to want to take your, after you get everything colored in, of course, for the sake of YouTube, I'm not going to color everything in. You're just going to take and put a little bit of adhesive on the back and adhere it, and voila! You are left with a really cute, fun card that you were able to use those images in. Now, you know, think outside of the box. You could do a baby card with this and use like the giraffe, or you could do something like with the just all dogs or dogs and cats. You could do all unicorns and then do You Are Magical. So there's a lot of variety to a stamp set like this. And even though the images may be small, if you frame them with something like this, there's square frames. I've seen other companies that have a similar thing out. You can make a really dynamic card. So next up is this one. This is a tedious one. And this is when you have your thin cuts in your stamped images. This is to make life easier. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but you've stamped an image and then you go to cut it out, and it either die cuts where the border is too far over, or it cuts off some of your image, or you try to die cut it first and then you decide to stamp it later and you don't get perfect placement. And it ends up being quite frustrating. So I have a way that you can solve this. This is the new, let's see, this is Born to Bloom. It's the new Stampin' Thin Cuts from Close to My Heart. It's their new release. So what I do is I just take a piece of cardstock and I die cut it all out. So I am left with both the images and then a piece like this. I hang on to this piece forever because this is going to be what I use for my reference. So once I get everything die cut out and I select the image that I want to use, I go ahead and I throw it in my platform. Like so. And then let's say that I want to use this image right here. I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to put it right in the image. I'm just going to line it up like so. And sometimes what you can do to make sure it's perfect is you lift it and it should hold it. And then I'm going to take this, make sure it's butted up in the corner, because you guys, I'm really notorious for misplacing my magnets all the time. But just to be on the safe side, I do have a bar magnet, so I'm going to just place that right here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up this image like so. I'm going to drop in my die cut that I've already cut out, and then I'm going to ink up my image. And the beauty is, you guys, with this, if you don't get it inked up perfectly and you have to redo it, it's no big deal because it's perfectly lined up. You can do it over and over again. And I'm just going to pop that in there like so, give it a nice rub, and I would like that darker, so I go in again with more ink, give it a nice rub. Voila! Now I have a perfect die cut image that is no time at all. I want to show you the card I created with this set. I did use a set from Cut Cardstock. It is by Darius. And I'll leave that link down provided. The shipping on it is cheap, or it's inexpensive for paper. You get it relatively quick, and they have really great customer service. So I just took this, which is all greens, and I'm like, I want to make a card out of that. So I took a 5.5 by 5.5 card base, and then I cut down a dark green sheet and then a light green sheet. I ran the light green sheet through this beadboard to create kind of like a shiplap, and then I placed it on the card. I cut out a piece of vellum because vellum tends to calm the eye down whenever you have any kind of pattern on pattern, and this is considered a pattern. I stamped and embossed, and then what I did with this is I didn't want to color in all these images. Remember, I didn't want to use a Copic marker, so I let the cardstock do the dirty work for me. It did the job. I basically stamped in gold, embossed, so I embossed it after I stamped it, and then I used Renia foil paper right here for the pots because I thought that was super cute, and I used some pop dots as I put the card together, and now I have this really beautiful simple card that really took no time at all, and it's quite elegant. All right, let's move on to step 3. For technique number 3, I'm going to, or tip number 3, I don't know if these are techniques or tips. You can call it what you want. I'm going to be using this stamp set because this is a really great set. When I saw it, I'm like, ooh, I have to have it. You can build it, but there's a lot of coloring involved in this, clearly. And so I wanted to kind of cheat and use my watercolor pencils, which actually these are mermaid pens. Basically all it is it is a watercolor in a Aquaflow brush that can be refilled. You can make your own using mist and just putting them in an Aquaflow pen, or you can take your powdered pigment like your Ken Oliver Color Burst, putting a little bit into a Aquaflow pen, which is something like this. It's a water pen with a brush tip on it. And you could dab some of this in and shake it up and make your own. So there's a couple different ways that you can use these. I'm going to be using my Jane Davenport ones for this. So what I did was I went ahead. Now, one of the tricks with Aquaflow is, since it's liquid, it spreads, right? and I want to keep it in the lines. I want a little bit of precision on this. So I went ahead, stamped out my image with embossing ink, and then I embossed it in black. And what that does is it allows for my pins to my color to kind of stay in one spot. Now, I have discovered that with these Jane Davenport, I'm not real happy with my skin color options. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and create some I'm just going to do the skin with some watercolor pins, and these are by Prima. And if I wanted to use these just as colored pencils, I could, but you would definitely want to make sure that the paper that you have has a tooth to it, because otherwise the watercolor pencils or colored pencils just kind of slide all over the place. So you definitely want to make sure there's a tooth to it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my brush, and I'm using a mixed media cardstock. This is not a watercolor cardstock. It's a mixed media heavy duty. And then I'm just going to take this water brush that I have put some water in, and I'm just going to spread that color out a little bit. And since I have those embossed raised edges on my image, I don't really have to worry too much about going outside of the lines for this. It'll hold quite nicely. All right. And then if that is like, if I want to change the intensity of any of the color along the way, since it is a watercolor technique that we're using, I can actually dab it. Now I want to back up a minute and tell you, before you stamp your image out, it's really important that you run a static pouch over it. And what that does is it is actually like there's powder in here, so it takes up all the extra moisture. Pardon me. And then when I put my color down on it and I emboss it, I get a clean, crisp image that does not have any excess it didn't emboss in areas I didn't want it to. And let me show you what I'm talking about, because this image, I didn't do a very good job of that. And I'm going to show you in the bonus clip on this. Do you see how I have some extra areas here that have some dark embossing powder? That's because I didn't run a static pouch over it. So just look at the difference on how that's stamped. So it's super important that you do that. Now, if you notice that you have, after you do that, you may have a couple specks here and there of your embossing powder. Before you set it, just go over and lightly with a soft bristle brush, just brush that away. Again, I didn't do that on this one, and you can see the difference. Okay, so for here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start to color this in. Now, I like to do different color hair usually on people. I think that's a lot of fun. So I'm going to actually go in with, on him, I think I'm going to do a little bit of this beach, like so. And then I'm going to go over it, because see, it's a water base, so it's going to blend. I'm going to go over it with this, this is like a pirate's gold, and it'll blend out. Now, I have to tell you guys, I don't like it when they put these funky names on different type, like on the colors. Like, can't we just call it gold? Can't we just call it peach? Can't we, can't we do it? I don't know what this means. Okay, so since it's on a media type paper, it does hold up with the water quite nicely, and I want to put a little bit of red in, and this is called Lobster, in her hair, so she's going to be a little bit of a redhead. Okay, so it's just really, really lots of fun. And then let's do something kind of fun on Mom. Let's give her some pink hair. I think that would be fun. And see how it just holds right within that line. I don't have to worry about the line spreading, or, I'd have to be super sloppy to get outside of that line, because it just creates a barrier right there. All right, and then I want to go in with a little bit more pink. Just go kind of around. And then on this little baby girl, let's just do her with some dark hair. So I love this because you can totally build an entire family. And it comes with this line that you can have them sit on. So I just lined it up in my Misty, the line first, and then I heat set it with embossing powder, and then I lined up these other people right on top of it, and boom, there you go. So let's say that I get done coloring that. This is what I could do for the card, and this is how it ends up. So it's a really great white stark background, and then these colors lay just beautifully, these watercolor brushes lay just beautifully on top of those images when they're embossed. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a bonus today. I'm gonna take you over to my table because I'm going to literally do this next technique right with you. I'm not gonna stop the video and edit. You're just gonna see it in real time. So these are my 3 tips and techniques when card making. Again, all of these stamps are brand new from Close to My Heart for the month of July 2020, and I do have my link provided down below. And then the stamp set that I'm working with for this next is the July stamp of the month. It's this one right here. I absolutely love it, and it's for my beautiful friend stamp of the month. I did not get, even though I had access to the August stamp of the month, I really like this one, and so I decided to go ahead and get this one. All right, so anyway, just to recap, that is how you can color in an image with aqua markers or something that's a little bit flowier and messier without making a huge mess. How to line up perfectly your stamps on your dies, and then how to frame small image stamps on a card front. All right, let's move down to the desk. If you're not going to be continuing on in the video, I'm so glad that you stopped by. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Make sure you check out my links down below for any of the products that I used. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I would love it if you share. That helps me grow, helps me keep creating, because I do get paid through ad revenue and also through my affiliate links down below, and that allows me to continue to bring free content to you guys. And then if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you're hanging out to watch how the new Distress Glaze works, I'm so excited that you're going to be joining me. I actually am going to be showing you a resist technique with that as well, so this is going to be a lot of fun, and I will meet you over at the desk. Down to my desk where I like to do the majority of my crafting. Today I'm going to share with you this bonus clip on this video, and the reason why it's a bonus is because I have done this technique before, and it's the same thing. I did it on this card. That's not on this channel. It was actually the first time I tried this technique. That's a Picket Fences card. I think it's so cute. And it works really well. And basically this is that Distress Glaze that is colored in that hamburger. And then I did a resist type technique with it. And I did this first, really liked how it turned out, so I did a video with this. So this is up on my channel, and I talk about that in that video about what I'm doing. However, I have learned a few things, and sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to find the video. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and throw this technique on at the end of this for you. I'm not using this cardstock either. I'm using a watercolor based cardstock, and we'll see how this plays with the embossing pens and the Distress Glaze. So I'm not going to edit this down for you at all. It's going to be literally straight through. I do have some stuff already done. Obviously my stamping is done, and like I had mentioned previously, really important that you use the static pouch because that gets off some of that excess moisture and you won't get these little black embossing powder bits that you can't get off. But for this, it's going to be okay. Now, like I said, I have learned some things since I have done that video. One of which is this. Normally, I like to stamp and emboss my images using my Versa Fine. This is black. I emboss black over it. I love that look. The clear mark by Nuvo also is great. So is the any kind of the embossing stuff from Ranger. The distress inks work well, but I always like to go back to that black one because I know that I have gotten, I can see the image is what I'm trying to say. I can see the image, then I emboss over it. The only problem is I have discovered that just because you emboss over it, there's still maybe sections that did not emboss. And then when you go and you use things like your embossing pen on top of a colored pigmented ink like this, you will actually start to pick up some of that color on the tip of your embossing pen. So, lesson learned, don't do what I did. I'm going to tell you how to avoid this, I think, and I'm going to order some more pens. However, with that being said, this still works with what I want it to do. It works, and if you want a gray undertone, this is great. It'll help you see where you have laid down the color, and so you know you'll be able to get the color in just the right spot. It's not clear, there is no guesswork on it, but I advise you not to try to ruin your tip. It should look more like the base of that. So, what is safe to use with this? I'm glad you asked. Archival ink is safe to use with this, the black suit. So what you would want to do is, I don't emboss with this. I think I have seen it done. I have not done it. So what you'd want to do if you would just stamp out the image and then color it in. I wanted to emboss this because of the type of technique I'm going to use on top of this. So I used my clear mark embossing powder, and then I went over it with my black embossing powder. So I used the ink pad, excuse me, I can talk, the clear mark Nuvo ink pad, and then I went over it with black embossing powder. Now the embossing powder, once it is melted, it doesn't transfer, okay? So it's important that if you want to use your embossing pen on top of your embossed image and you want the image to be black, that you use a black powder over a clear ink. And if you don't have an embossing pen and you want to do this technique, it's okay. All you have to do is take a paintbrush, and maybe you have the dabber. You could easily just dab some of this out, pick it up with a paintbrush, and paint it in. This is the same as this. It's just in a different format. So this allows for really detailed type coloring. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color my little girl's skin in, and so I'm going to use Tattered Angel. So what I do is I add in, see how that's all black or like a gray? Yeah, it's because I contaminated my pen with the wrong ink. So again, you see it right here. I don't know what this is going to do to the tone of this, because it may change it a little, which is okay. And I didn't do my pouch. I need to go over this. I'm sorry about my dogs, guys. Every time I lay out some of this embossing ink, I need to go over it with my pouch, because it'll do just what you saw right there. And so I offset some of that with my soft bristle brush, which is a way to get rid of the excess. So I'm going to go ahead and just heat set this. Make sure your gun is nice and hot. Kind of like her skin tone like that. All right, so as you can tell with the glaze, this is you can see through it, okay? So whatever color I lay down first is going to dictate what my results are. So I have to keep that in mind. All right, so I'm done with this color. So I'm gonna go ahead, and my next color I'm going to use is going to be my cracked pistachio. And again, I wanna color in her socks and her dress with this. And I'm just going to lay this out. Now again, this is a watercolor cardstock that I'm using because I did not think I would be utilizing this technique. I actually was going to do a different technique on this, and so I cut my cardstock down first. So this is kind of a good experiment just to see how well this plays with watercolor cardstock, because watercolor cardstock soaks it up, your moisture, quicker. And in order to emboss, you do need to have some moisture laid down. That's super important. So let me go ahead and just hit this. And again, see what I did? I still forgot to do my static. So that's not good. I need to remember to do that. So not only is this adding color in a glaze, it looks like a beautiful glaze, but it also is creating a resist for when I want to do the background. All right, so now I'm gonna start to color in my leaves. So I'm gonna go over everything. This time I'm going to go over everything with my static pouch, and that'll hopefully remove some of the moisture. And so for my leaves, I'm going to do peeled paint. So I'm gonna do some right there. And I'm just going to color in, I think I got the wrong pin. I did. Actually, I kind of want that bullet for this, for these little areas right here. So I'm just coloring it all in. I'm getting those leaves in. And again, since this is a semi-transparent embossing powder, oops, I didn't mean to get that one, it's going to show that gray. Oh, see, I'm coloring in some of the flowers. Oh well. Oops, oh well, continue to move on, right? All right, so I think we're getting pretty good with that. Let me get this one right here. All right, and then I'm gonna just take my peeled paint and spread that out. And you can be super generous because everything we will put right, and see how very little went where I didn't want it to go. And that's all because of that pouch. So whenever you are embossing, make sure that you utilize that pouch. And I must not have gotten it all up there because, as you can tell, I had some there, but that's all right. All right. So this is peel paint. This is fast becoming one of my very favorite techniques. When I first got these glazes, I wasn't 100% sure on how to use them, and I really didn't know how I felt about them. But now that I've been playing with them, I really enjoy them, and I think that they're a and especially with the technique I'm going to show you, which I learned through Simon Hurley. Where was it?
I don't know how it got there. It's good. There's no ID.
All right, So I got dogs and kids. Y'all understand though, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's my son. Okay, so that would emboss. I am going to let it cool for just a second because it is warm. And my next color that I'm going to use is going to be Broken China. So I want to color in some of the flowers with the Broken China. And yeah, I think I'm going to do that. And I'm very generous right now with that, my pouch. So I'm just going to do some of the flowers with my Broken China. Like so. You know, and I was wondering if I could, if it eventually would, the tip would eventually come back to normal, and I don't think it is. It's all right. I will buy another one. At least it helps somebody out there not make the same mistake I did. All right, so Broken China, there we go. Again, just gonna take some of that like so. And as you can see, like right there, I didn't get all of that in there. Do you see how there's like a hollow spot right there? But that's okay. The technique that I'm using next, I'm not real fussy about it. I think it'll still work. So you may be asking yourself, I am going to go over that section one more time. You may be asking yourself, well, Bets, can't I do this with just regular embossing powder? Absolutely you could, but you might lose your lines because regular embossing powder tends to go over the lines because you can't see through it. So just keep that in mind whenever you're doing a technique like this. Real crafting, guys. I'm not editing this portion of the video for you. And the reason I'm doing that is I get a lot of questions. People actually don't like a perfectly edited video. They kind of want to see you struggle through things because what I'm struggling with, you guys might struggle with. And so it helps if you can see how I work through it or if I work through it. And, you know, that's why sometimes I don't edit everything. And lives are so popular. So see, it's coming to life, right? Now, while that dries, that is such a good time for you to go ahead and just put your powder back into your little container. Now, I do have the Ranger link provided for you down below if you're interested in these glazes. They came out with another color, a brand new color to the line. It is called Speckled Egg. And I have it on order. It has not come yet, but I'm super excited to try it. It's almost like a, well, it looks like a speckled egg. It's kind of like a blue. I want to say it looks like a bluish gray. So it should be a lot of fun. All right. So the next color that I'm going to use is going to be Fired Brick. Oh. So like I said, I do like the contaminated tip because I can see where I've laid color down and where I still need to. All right. And then the last one we're going to do is fossilized amber, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to finish this card off, which is a lot of fun. I call this the resist technique for lazy people. Now you do want to hold it up when you heat set it. By the way, Swiffer works great with getting little bits of powder and glitter off of your work surface. You do want to hold it up because it allows the hot air to flow through and it sets faster. I know I didn't do that the last time. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and just finish off the spots that don't have any color with my fossilized amber. And then we were going to go ahead and add our background in. And yes, I'm adding the background in last. This is a resist technique. So if you use a dye ink pad, this will totally work with that. Ink pads that you want to steer clear of because they will end up staining your image would be anything that is waterproof. So a StazOn ink would not work with this, and also I wouldn't do an archival ink because I am going to be blending the color right over that image and then removing the color because the Distress Embossing Glaze acts as a resist. All right, so now we are going to do this one. I'm sorry about my dogs. All right, so from here, I am just going to, there's a couple spots that didn't get the color, so I'm just gonna actually add in a couple yellow fossilized amber, I should say, spots on those. So it's just gonna be a little bit of a pop of fossilized amber, just here and there. I mean, that really is white space, but I'm just going to fill it up with that. Okay. All right, here we go. My house is being painted right now, so that's why they're kind of freaking out. All right, now I did layer on some of that fossilized amber over some of the other color. So let's see what this does. definitely layered on beautifully on top of the other colors. It really does look like a glaze because you can see through it. So this is a really great way to add almost like a stained glass effect to your projects as well. The more I play with these embossing glazes, the more impressed and more fun I have. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the background now. This is part of the reason why I did this. See, to me, this is a cheater technique in the sense that I can color it, I can get the resist down on it, and then I can do the background. Don't have to wait for anything to dry. If you know, like if I used like a mask on top of it, I'd have to stamp the mask, I'd have to cut the mask out, then I'd have to put it over it to do the technique I'm going to do right now. But with this, when you emboss the whole image, not only does it leave a beautiful shine and color to it, it also allows things to resist. So the colors that I've chosen, because I haven't really played with these much, Minty Fresh, Gur, and Wolf. So these are Simon Hurley ink pads. These are fast becoming my very favorite ink pads. I love these things. They stamp beautifully, they blend beautifully, they react with water beautifully. The color is buildable, and that muddiness that you get when you don't respect your color families doesn't always come through on this. Like, it's not as muddy. So as you can see, I'm just going through right now through the center of this card, and I am just building on this Minty Fresh. I love it. Look how pretty that is. So if you get those blending tool marks in your craft on your card, whatever you're working on, just keep working it, because sometimes you'll be able to just work that right out. All right, so the next one I want to do is I want to do Wolf over on this edge. Let's see here. Which is a really pretty, ooh, it's like a grayish brown. Yeah, I think that these colors work beautifully with the glazes that I chose and the style of card that this is going to be. Look how effortlessly that blends in. And this is watercolor paper. So very heavy duty paper. All right, and then the last one I'm going to use is Gur. And this is more of a brown. And I'm going to use it over here on this side. Like so. And then I might just kind of go around the edges. Like so. Okay. And I'm just kind of blending it all the way through. Like so. All right, how pretty is that? But we're not done yet. I'm going to remove the color from the glaze, and I also am going to spray a little bit of water on it just to get it. Look how pretty that is. It just made it move all around, and I just love, love, love that. And then once I'm happy with the reacting of it, I'll just dab it up and boom. But I'm not done yet because I want to remove the color off of that glaze. And you may be thinking, well, I don't see the color on the glaze. Well, it's there. I'm going to take it up. I'm going to take a baby wipe, and I'm just going to wipe over, and see, it's coming up right now. All of the glaze spots. And that's just really going to help that image pop and those colors just come to life. And the glaze stays and that ink comes up. So I just created a resist on this card. And the card front that I'm going to use, I'm going to open this up. I have from my stash, I think that this is from some kind of oh, I don't even know, card pack or something. So I'm just going to adhere my mat down first. This is a 4 by 5.25 mat on top of an A2 card, which the card front is 4.25 by 5. And then I'm going to adhere this on top of that. And this is 3.75 by 5. And I really like that white base, so that's why I decided to keep it. Otherwise, I would have colored it with my ink. And voila, there we go. We have a beautiful card made with this stamp set, which is the stamp of the month, $5. They're close to my heart, utilizing a couple different techniques and products. So I know that this video was long today. If you stuck around for this card, I'm so glad that you did. I hope you learned something. I hope that I saved you from ruining the tips of your embossing pins. And they come in 2 tips. It's a pack of 2 that they come in. They come in this tip, which is the brush tip. That's my favorite. And then also a bullet tip for really fine, fine lines. All right, you guys. I'm not going to give the spiel that I gave about subscribing and yada, yada, yada. You know what to do. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please come back and see what we're doing next time. Make sure you check out the links in the profile below. I mean, in my description box below, because it has all the links so you can find everything that we played with today. Until next time, happy crafting. I'm Betsy Golden.